Hello, Poe fans, and welcome back to another Poe discussion. And I am Jeannie Smith. However, this week, month, whatever it may be, episode, we'll say episode, I have a special co host, Miss Holly Knightley. Say hi, Holly.
Hey everyone, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Jeannie, and with our special guest tonight, the one and only Carmen Bouldin.
Yes, yes, she is now supposed to take a back seat because she is a guest in
Yeah.
this episode, not a host. So that's why we are going to talk to my other Poe half, the Potastic half two half, half one, Potastic one. Yeah, we'll call it the Potastic one.
So,
Carmen Bouldin. So, Carmen, tell us a little bit to start this off about yourself, because that's the
all
way we roll.
right. So yes, I am the one or two of the Potastic two, and I have been invited to be a guest tonight
Mhm.
because of the book I wrote, The Rose Bush. Thus, you can see my rose blouse, my rose, and my rose. Yes, and Holly just held up the book. I have it too, but I think with my background, it probably won't come through. So the novella just debuted May 16th, which was Virginia and Edgar's wedding anniversary. And
Mhm.
if you haven't read it, I did give a little tiny spoiler of that date is important to someone, a character in the book. And so then also I think it's July, Jeannie and I are both featured with some of our poems in Ravenscroft Press in their Cherish edition. So romance and more wholesome in the Cherish
Yeah,
edition.
yeah.
So
So,
that's what I've been working on, and also book two that will hopefully be coming out in August or September. Haven't decided yet.
a few months away. You got time to think about it.
Absolutely.
All right. So, to kick all this off, I'm going to hand it over to my special co host, Holly, to start it off with her question for Carmen.
Yay. Awesome. Thanks, Jeannie. So what I really loved about the rose bush is that it really is like a testament to what was popular during the 1800s with the Billings Romans style of the coming to age where you follow a character through the ups and downs of life. And I was curious, Carmen, what about this particular type of storytelling appealed to you, and why did you decide to do this for your first ever book? Well, it was not the first book I ever had planned. I was hoping to be murder mystery writer, and you never know if that'll eventually happen. But what appealed to me is writing a short story for a contest, and Holly and Jeannie both encouraged me to turn it into a novella. And it just, I think writing it in first person to me really was, I was able to bring the character to life because I felt like she was talking to me the entire time I was writing. And so that I think in the short story, she was past the point of where the novella started. And I think I had to basically give more of a backstory of what she went through as a 15-year-old and then going into adulthood. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I always think of David Copperfield. It's not by Charles Dickens. We don't you don't really get to see this kind of writing anymore. So for me, it was like super exciting. I love the idea of following someone. Because today a lot of more because this obviously is a gothic romance. It's a time period piece. It's set in the 1800s. So not only are you reading a piece of that time period, you're actually like reading it in the style that would have been popular during that time. And for me, of course, we're all Poe fans here, obviously. That's why we're here. It's just something, Carmen, like I know really excites me. And I know readers, who love any sort of gothic, whether it's romance, gothic mystery, gothic horror, I think could really get behind that and really, you know, awesome. Great Thank job. I love you. that. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I think too, trying to emulate Poe and other writers like Dickens,
And just, I like that style of storytelling because I like more of the flowery language. I mean, that's just me. I like modern books as well, but there's always been something that has spoken to me about that style of writing. And so that just kind of did it for me.
Well, my question is did you intentionally want to put all the Poe Easter eggs in there? Because did you want to design the book to be more Poe-esque, or did the Poe-esque part just develop from your storyline?
So this particular story, and I'm not really giving anything away based on, just like the synopsis of the story.
Hmm.
This is the backstory of Annabelle Lee, Poe's Annabelle Lee. And
Hmm.
originally, I'd say, oh, it was probably, let's see, it's 2025. It was probably about 2019, 2020. I had started thinking about writing a backstory for Annabelle Lee. And I had a totally different like way I was going with it. And I kind of just put it in the back burner. I had written a couple notes and it wasn't speaking to me like this story was. And I think um, the Easter eggs came as I wrote. And so I initially, it was going to be more just Annabelle Lee pulling things from the poem. But I think
Hmm.
as I kept writing, things would pop up and I'm like, oh, I can use this poem. I can use a quote from this. And so initially it was just Annabelle Lee. And then it became a lot of different ones that I pulled.
And that kind of makes sense. It goes along with the storyline because, as Holly stated, it is more of a period piece.
Yeah.
So you did stick more with that area. Now, I know we had discussed this a little bit, not a lot, but about Regency romances.
Hmm.
Because we probably, everyone here and probably watching, has at least once read a Regency romance.
Yes. Yes.
And it just it's not like Carmen said, it's not based on the normal romances that we read in today's society.
Hmm.
It's not a Harlequin book that you want to pick up and go, oh yeah, forget the whole story plot and kind of thing. It's not what we're looking for. So, not that that's bad. I'm
Oh,
just saying.
right.
Uh, so one of the things about the story, it is a lot of story. And like you said, you built it around the backstory for Annabelle Lee.
Hmm.
And you brought in, I don't want to call him Poe because I don't think you meant to create him as Poe, but he is, you know, the wait, what are the love interest? We'll call him the love
Okay.
interest. There we go.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The love interest is got a not a lot, but some characteristics to Poe. So
Mm.
is that your interpretation of how your love for Poe kind of is coming off the page?
Um, Not maybe a little bit, but it really, again taking it from the short story version because it basically kind of the short story started with Annabelle meeting, Arthur.
Mhm.
And so it kind of I wouldn't necessarily say it is what I think of Poe like 100%. I think some
Mhm.
elements, like you said, kind of came out as I was writing certain characteristics, but it wasn't on purpose. He evolved as I kept writing. And
Okay.
initially, I would say it took me a little while to decide what kind of man he was going to be. So,
I
and kind of based on thinking about the names I chose, a lot of the names that are in the story are from other Poe stories. And
mhm.
so I thought about, his full name is Arthur William Wilson, but he's not a duality. And so I was like, I could have taken off and done something like that. And then I was like, no, I'm gonna leave that alone. it just happened to just work out that way.
Yeah. Well, my interpretation was the duality was his character with Poe.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
So
and
That makes sense.
that's
Yeah.
what led
yeah,
my question of why I was asking
yeah.
because,
No, Jeannie, that's
you
a
know,
good point. And I think,
yeah.
you know, I hope that I gave the reader something that they could interpret, from reading this, kind of like Poe leaves things to the reader's imagination. And,
Mhm.
in talking to my husband, he finally read it and he really liked it. And one of the things that he mentioned, he said, while I was reading, and I don't want to give too much away, but he thought at one point Annabelle was going to get her own cat. He was like, I wonder if that's going to come up later. And
Mhm.
I said, no, it didn't. I thought about it, but then I was like, it doesn't work with the story. And he goes, okay. And I
Mhm.
said, but that made me feel good that you used your own imagination, pulling from what I've written to think about, I wonder what's going to come up. So that, building that suspense or, just the unknown.
Exactly. And one of the things that I do want to put out there about the book is for those that are not co I don't want to use the term, but might as well fanatics that that this would probably pull them in first.
Yes.
But for anyone that may have not even read Annabelle Lee, the one thing that Carmen does, she does include the poem at the beginning of the book to
Yes.
help give you some background context about the character of Annabelle Lee.
Yes.
So that's one good thing that is laid out in the book is it helps the reader who may not have read Poe for any age group. And that's one of the things I was going to point out also is the book is built for any age group.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
and so there is that. So you've got the story of Annabelle Lee of the poem to help kick off your what's the word I'm gonna look for? Your dive
Yes.
into the rose bush.
Yeah.
But there's some thorns, so you better be careful.
That's right.
All right. So
Right.
I'm going to turn it over to Holly to take over with your more questions there for Carmen.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah. I just want to second what Jeannie said. Absolutely. Like, if you're a Poe fan, you're going to love all of the Easter eggs because they are so plentiful. But the great thing about how Carmen, how you're writing is, Poe actually takes his back seat, even though it's inspired by his works,
Hmm.
because there's so many twists and turns in the story. There's a little bit of like, there's mystery, there's murder, there's mayhem, there's loss, there's grief. So I mean, it's a nice little roller coaster ride of emotions, which is great. But actually, going back to the title, you chose this for first book to be called The Rose Bush. You play a lot on symbolism in the story in general, but specifically with this road. I don't want to give too much away to the story because it is a very like crucial part. But and we know that this is the first book in the series where you're going to be doing more symbolism on flowers. So,
Hmm.
what was it about the rose in particular that really spoke to you and you wanted to use this to tell Annabelle's story?
So I think that when well, let me go back. So, one of the things like that, anytime I'm traveling, I'm just even driving down the road and I think of something for a short story idea, I guess even book, that kind of thing. I make a little keep in my phone when I'm not driving or if I'm riding in the car, whatever. And when back in November during Thanksgiving, Jeff and I were traveling with two of his kids and their husbands, and we did a train ride. And so, as we were passing by this one, there was lots of, houses and yards and things. I just happened to look out, and in the middle of like their backyard, it was like dirt, not a whole lot of grass, but it was this square. There was a single rose bush in the middle of their backyard like that. And I was like, that would tie into a story somewhere. So I quickly pulled out my phone, I took a picture of it and made a note and just, left it alone. It didn't have anything to do with this story had not come into my brain yet. And so when I signed up to do a short story contest, And so when I was given the genre of romance, I was like, what in the world am I going to do? This is going to be hard. So I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to pull this rosebush piece. And then something just struck me, Annabelle Lee. And so I had to figure out how to form that around it. And so that's why I chose the rosebush for the first one. Now, also too, I love roses. My name, Carmen, means a rose. There's other meanings too, but that's one thing. But my mother's favorite flower was a red rose. That's what she carried for her wedding. And so they are very meaningful to me because of that. So it was like all of this kind of tied together. And I'm like, this is the perfect flower to start with for like lots of different meanings. So
And
Yeah,
then
no,
it goes on.
that's awesome.
thank
Yeah,
you.
and
Yeah.
actually, and you know what, Carmen? I mean, again, I don't want to give too much away because you have some other Poe-esque characters in there for us Poe fans. Again, you don't have to be a Poe fan to enjoy this, but it kind of does recall me a little bit to the Sarah Helen Whitman rose bush a little bit.
Yes,
You
yes, that
you
too.
play a little bit with her in your book, so I
Mhm.
think anyone, again, Poe fans are going to love it. I mean, I just love what I don't want to say anything more than to say that the symbolism and how you use the rose bush is super clever, and I can really appreciate that. And I know because I know you and Jeanie are poets, right? So for someone like me, it's like when I read stuff like that, I was like, oh, that's so good. So I absolutely love it. Very, very cool.
Well, poetry itself, especially in the art form that Poe gave us, is very romantic in my opinion, but it's a dark romance because his is always tied with some kind of tragedy. And that has its own meaning, which goes into Carmen's book that
Yes,
you can read
Absolutely.
into it. Yes, pun intended.
yes.
Just saying. But one of the things, and Carmen and I have always discussed this we discussed this when she was talking about turning this into a series,
Yes.
and the Gothic Garden series by having it hit upon different flowers. And so we had always discussed this, maybe in other episode, I can't remember which one it was,
Right.
about how what's it called? Florology,
Floriography. Yes.
that's the word. I knew it
Yes.
had an F in there. So I think it was Queen Victoria, right? That did it. Was
I
it Queen Victoria or was it Queen Elizabeth?
I think yeah, it was Victoria because this was all
Right.
during the Victorian age. Very
Exactly.
popular. Yes.
So she actually had studies done for different meanings behind the flowers.
Hmm.
So that's why when Carmen started discussing about which flowers she was going to move forward with, and the particular flower that Carmen has isn't just a regular red rose.
True. True.
Yeah, you'll find that out in the story. It's not just a typical red rose that most of us have seen and
Yes.
enjoyed many times over. So
Yes.
it kind of goes off with the play that she's going to have in the Gothic Garden series about the different flowers, the meanings behind them, the whole, you know, I don't want to say this, but if you are a Poe fan, like Holly said, and you want to use like Carmen's book for playing like Poe egg, drinking games, maybe, you know, how many Poe things that can you, because it's really, her book is like the 6 degrees of Poe. It is our
That's tr-
podcast. So
that's true.
I think you would be like drunk by like chapter two. Like that.
Yeah.
you have to level yourself out and be very
Yeah.
specific. But
My
I mean, that
gosh.
was one of the things, is she definitely ties it in wonderfully to the 6 degrees of Poe, which is the podcast and why we do it. But she's condensed it into one story, and she started it with one of our favorites of
Yes.
Annabelle Lake,
Absolutely.
The Kingdom by the Sea, the most tragic of all the romances, in my opinion. you
Mm.
know,
Well,
with
that
such
actually brings me to one of my questions
Okay.
was, your main character is Annabelle Allen.
Right.
And obviously we know this is like, the backstory is on Annabelle Lee. was is that actually your favorite like female that Edgar Allan Poe pens? Like
That's
is that your number one?
that is a really good question. I think she is because that poem I read, The Raven was really my first, experience with Poe. But I think with Annabelle Lee, it didn't come too far after that when I read that poem. And there was always just something, the rhythmic, tension throughout the whole poem. It resonated with me, and just the name Annabelle Lee is just beautiful. And so I do. I think she is my favorite. I love all the other ladies, but I think
Yeah.
I would say she's my top one. And I'll add that I do have some plans for some of the other Poe ladies in the future, but I think with the way Annabelle Lee is written, and it's, the speaker's perspective, she's already died. The only we don't have a whole lot of information about her. It was easier to write her backstory, not saying that mine is the end all be all. Someone else could do something else, but there was a lot of license to add who she
Hmm.
was.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
makes
that's one
sense.
things we've always discussed is Poe is very open in his writing. He
Hmm.
leaves it open from beginning to end, and he even can even leaving the opening for the middle. So you can add your own imagination, your own story plots, and we've even discussed, you are just one of the next in line that was influenced by Edgar Allan Poe
Hmm.
in developing your story. Now, I don't think many of the other ones went towards the romance side, but
Yeah.
that's okay
Oh, yeah.
because, as we've talked about, you mentioned his other ladies in the stories, like Morella, that's
Uh-huh.
what it was, is
Okay.
that the ladies were not as brought up as many, it hasn't been used a lot because most people don't read about Morella or Lenore. They know Lenore because of the Raven,
Hmm.
but they don't know Lenore. And just like with Morella and I just
Lygia.
blanked on some. Yeah,
Lygia.
thank you. I
My
knew there was
favorite.
another. I know there was another L in there. Lygia. Let's see. There's Morella, Lygia, Lenore,
Berenice.
Berenices.
Berenice. That's the one we always. It's either Bernice,
Whatever you want to
Berenice,
call her.
Yeah.
Bernice, whatever.
Yeah. There's an Eleonora. Yeah,
Yes.
I do like
Rowena.
Eleanor. Yeah, but she
Yeah.
has all that has all the flower imagery in Eleonora, so that's a beautiful, beautiful
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It totally is. Well, and Lenore, what a lot of people don't realize, yes, she is the love in the Raven, but she has her own poem too, and it's a really good one.
Yeah.
Yes. And Helen.
Oh,
Helen. We
yes.
have to we have to bring up Helen because there are two poems about Helen, but it's two different Helens.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and that I think that's where I was going with it is that there was a whole other side of Poe that he was, we won't call him a ladies' man,
Okay.
but he had a special relationship with ladies. He wasn't like a playboy. He was
Right.
more of, he had mother influences. He had like best friends. He did have love interests, and
Mhm.
but I think a lot of his seeking, whatever. A lot of the times, the ladies he was seeking were more of, I think, a comfort, a different type of love than a romantic love is where I'm going with it.
Yeah. And I think he was also looking for women that were writers that were,
Hmm.
some type of art form where he could have intelligent conversations. Because I think he
Yes.
had that with Virginia. And
Hmm.
so I think he was still seeking that too.
Yeah, and Virginia, of course, wrote an acrostic poem for Poe on
Hmm.
Valentine's Day.
Exactly.
So there was that level of romance to his life, but it was very much the 1800s Regency type romance.
Yeah.
It was more of like a Pride and Prejudice kind of thing when I look at it. So,
Yeah.
but where I was going is in the Gothic Garden series with the other flowers that you have picked out. Did you pick those flowers based on maybe his female influences of his life, or maybe how you picture some of them relating to some of the flowers you have in mind? Is where I was going.
Okay. So the
In
second
a long roundabout way, but okay.
oh, hey, that's okay. No, that was good. That was good stuff. So,
Hey, okay.
um, the second book, I've already said it's going to be called The Asphodels, and
Hmm.
the it's really a flower that, when you look at the Greek mythology, depending on, because there's the white with the pink, and then there's also
Hmm.
and it's a flower that Persephone in the underworld used to light the way, light her way back,
Hmm.
because she could come to the regular world, one time a year and that kind of thing. And so they are very much representative of death and regret and things like that. And so I don't want to give too much away of the story. I have started it, but I haven't gotten deep into it, but I already know how it's going to end. So I try, I don't outline it necessarily, but I have notes that I know exactly how I'm going to lay the whole thing out. But so this particular character was not necessarily chosen based on one of Poe's ladies. It's
Hmm.
more, he mentions asphodels in the Valley of Unrest, in Berenice, but this particular character is, she's going to she's going to suffer like Poe's ladies, but yeah,
Hopefully not. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully not the
not
ultimate
Yeah,
suffer,
not
but
the
okay.
not
yeah.
not saying anything about that, but
Yes.
so
And they
she
die at the end. No. Sorry.
but
I love
yeah,
it though.
so she's maybe she's really not, she's not based off of any of the Poe characters.
Hmm.
However, there's going to be elements of Poe in the book. And then my third book is going to be based off of a Poe character. And so, but I've got to really see how I can work this, because her death is representative in Poe's story. So I've got to figure out where to start her story that will blend with Poe's, you know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
Do we get a hint
Kind of.
of who this character is, or do we have to wait?
well, okay, so here's what I'll say.
Okay.
The flower is called Dutchman's Reaches. And
Mm.
it's on they're little flowers that there's a vine, it's or like a little stem, and they hang, and they're white, and so it looks like little pants hanging down, like the pant legs are on the
Yeah.
stem, and it looks like a clothesline, but they're white, and the way they're shaped, they also look like teeth. So that's my hint.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you guys
I
know I
s-
love that. I know we talked about that one Poem Plug. You know I love that story.
Oh
So
yeah, it's a good one. It's so good. It's so good.
yeah. So in essence what you're saying is that this book, along with the future books, that if you turn it into a Poe drinking game, you have to be very careful because you'll end up passed out, like Holly said, before you get through like the second chapter.
Yes,
So
yes.
but anyway,
Absolutely.
what I'm trying to get to basically is to say that you are paying homage to one of your all-time favorite authors
Yes.
with these stories
Yes.
and with these books.
Yes.
So,
I feel like I'm holding hands with Poe in the Gothic Garden.
yes.
I love
And you are
that.
creating your own 6 degrees of Poe.
Yeah, absolutely. And Judy, I never even thought about what you said about I've kind of put the 6 degrees into And
Mhm.
the Annabelle Lee's backstory with the rose bush, I never even thought of that until you said that, but it really makes sense. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
my mind can't move away from it.
Can't disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I
it's
mean,
awesome. It's all organic, you know. I mean, no,
Yeah.
that's it. The story is so smooth. Like everything, it's not forced. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's really well done, Carmen.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I just, like I said, I just felt like she just kept talking to me, and I'd be driving to work, and then all of a sudden something would come into my head, and I'm like, hold on, let me get to school first so I can write it down.
Yes. It always happens at the most inopportune times to where you wish like we were in the future where we had those little recorders that are stuck in our brain to where they can just record what
Yeah.
we think
I
and we
know.
don't have to stop and
Yeah.
oh that would be the life. So, maybe in a few more years, you never
Yeah, but that's scary.
know. Well, yeah. AI is here, so you never know. We are the Jetsons now. We've made it to the Jetson era.
That's true. That's true.
So
That's
we've talked about the current book, which is called The Rosebush.
hmm
It can be purchased on Amazon. You can do it via ebook, hardback, or paperback.
Yes.
And it's also locally. We have the one bookstore here in Lebanon,
Yeah, Harper's Books in
Harper's
Lebanon on
Books.
it's right off the square. And so
Yes.
they are a really quaint little bookstore. They have all kinds of books, and they feature local artists or authors, and they have a whole like section, and it's very nice. Very nice.
And also, you are going to be featured, well, one of the featured authors in September 5th through the
Yes,
7th, correct?
that is correct.
September 5th through the 7th in Sevierville
hmm
at the,
Happily Ever After
thank you.
convention. Yes.
Yes, because I was like, I know it's HEA, but I can't ever remember the happily ever after. I know the acronym, can't ever remember what it stands for. You'd
Exactly.
think I know that when you think about all the, fairy tales and all that, but you don't.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sometimes I'm good with acronyms, sometimes I'm not. But
Yeah.
anyway, so in September, you're going to be around there. And then when we are at Poe Fest, well, at least Carmen, knock on wood, I may be able to be there.
Yes.
Holly, I know you're going to be there, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah, I'll be there at least one of the days.
okay,
Maybe
and
more.
you,
Oh no.
and
Warning.
you're going to have all your wonderful recent publications out for people to find, and you have your own Poe influences with yours, with the horror especially.
Yes.
So you're going to be there, and so yeah, you can find all the wonderful places to purchase for Carmen's book, and
Mhm.
pay attention. She does have her own website called the
The quotableraven.com.
Quotable.
Yes. And all of the social
Can't
media
talk.
for the book, or I guess author pages, is either
Mhm.
the Quote Raven or the Quotable Raven on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
Yeah,
And
I
Right.
just want to say about Instagram, Carmen is one of the featured authors in Alex Hartwell's Beyond the Thon, which
yes,
is super exciting. So if you guys are not following Carmen on Instagram, make sure you do,
thank you.
because she's a
Mhm.
featured author. So there's going to be interviews, pictures, and a lot of fun stuff. And that is coming early August. I believe the 6th starts.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yes. And Holly is going to be one of the featured authors too. So,
So we're together
yay.
forever.
Hey,
No.
Yes, that's going to be
all
fun.
right.
With lots of other
Forevermore.
material.
Yay,
Yeah.
forevermore.
Yes.
Yeah, Holly will be the Potastic Three.
There you go.
So
I like it.
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
I'm the third wheel.
you're the third Pomigo instead
Yeah.
of Amigo. You're the
Oh, I
third
like that.
Pomiga.
Well,
You're the third Pomiga.
then I also
Yeah,
think of the show Charmed with P3, their nightclub. It's
exactly.
three because there's three of them.
Exactly. Yep. There we go. We are now the P3.
Yes. P cubed is what it looks
Yeah,
like.
yeah. We're cubed. Hey, that even works. We're cubed. That's a different word. But anyway, so but is there anything else you want to tell us, Carmen, about what's going on with the book, or give us
I
any more insight and anything future you might have?
I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything. Um,
Okay.
just again, like the ideas keep coming to me about, different flowers, and
Mhm.
it's like, okay, it's like, hold on, brain, let's get the second one done, then we'll move to the third one. And then well, and just to also add, Jeanie, myself, and my husband also are working on finishing
Mhm.
up our recipe book based on the 6 degrees of Poe, and it's called The
Yep.
Flavored Raven. And we have Holly to
Excellent.
thank for the title. And so, because we have our newsletter called The Favored Raven, and she thought it was flavored, and we're like, oh my God,
Yeah,
that is the name of the recipe book.
Yep.
because I can't read. Yeah, because I'm an author who can't read, so that totally
Oh,
makes sense, right?
oh.
Like, I'm
Right.
glad you were able to, yeah, think that was great because, yeah, so yeah,
So
embarrassing moment.
I'm on
Nothing.
summer break, and so Jeannie and I are heavily working on that, but
Mhm.
also like I'm trying to split my time, and like I'm going on a trip next week, and once I get back, I'm gonna try to split my time between both. So we're getting them, they're hopefully going to be done about the same time, is my guess.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Because it's been a long time in the making, it feels like.
Yeah.
So,
You guys have been teasing this for a while. I know. I'm
mhm.
waiting. I'm
Yes, I
waiting.
know. And
Yes.
well,
Pressure is
and
on.
at first, it was one of those things that we knew it was going to take a little while because of
Mhm.
just research, creating recipes. And now, like, because we took pictures of some things, originally, and then we took, and some of those pictures were like, we don't like that. So we got to remake them. So, like, I'm in the process of remaking a lot of these recipes, and it helps to test it out to say, okay, does it taste the same?
Mhm.
Is there anything to change? And so, because like I just made there's a recipe called the pepper bells that's linked to, Pose the Bells. And I'd made that 2 nights ago, and Jeff's like, tastes just like you made it the original one. So I was like, yes, success. So
Yeah.
we've
And
got
then
a
I
lot of
made the suggestion that instead of just using one type of bell pepper,
color that
she
it,
should, yeah, color. Because she was all, making with just green bell peppers.
yes.
I was like, why not make them with the other different colors? Because it
Well, you
goes
need
perfectly
red
with the
for.
bells.
Well,
Yeah.
even though Bells doesn't have blood, but I mean, you
Well,
have
the
to have red.
brazen bells. Yeah, the brazen
Yeah, I mean, like the
bells,
death. Yeah, death
The
gold,
bells. I
golden
gold
bells.
bells, and then
Yeah.
then there's the iron, no, there's the silver bells is the first
Yes.
one. That's gonna have to
Yeah.
be green. And then there's trying to think, alarm bells is the
yeah,
last one.
Mm-hmm.
And
alarm
there
bells.
there I have seen purple bell peppers. So
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
I've never had. That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive I have, but I mean it's that they're harder to find.
Yeah. It's turned into its own process with the flavored raven because
Yeah.
it's the formatting, I think, has been my biggest obstacle that I'm fighting.
Hmm.
Not really fighting, just you know how it is when you're autistic, artistic, not autistic, artistic. 'Cause some days I think I'm both, and it's showing. Um, but it's everything that we want it to be for Poe to represent
Yeah.
because it is part of
Absolutely.
us. And food. Food has always been said to have, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
That's
And
true.
mine too.
So
Yeah.
yeah, mine three. So
That's how me too.
we're paying homage to
Yes.
Poe right through
Yeah.
his stomach. All right.
Yeah. And I mean it's like trying to think about what stories to create these recipes for, and
Hmm.
just it's been a great experience, but it's been very hard to like, okay, do we limit this? What kind of balance do we need to have of all the
Yeah.
different types of things like entrees and sides and soups and all that? And so it's just been so fun because some are just punny based on the name to tie in. And then
Yeah.
some of the stories actually we've tied in like a food that's mentioned, pulling it out and creating the recipe. So
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool. I look forward to that one.
yeah. So just
Yeah.
just one of the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Even though he didn't finish his play called Palladian, butternut squash, or it's really just it says butternut, but it's butternut squash is in there. So I created a butternut squash recipe, and it's called
Oh,
Palladian squash.
oh, awesome. That's yeah, I love butternut squash. That's
Yeah,
like, yeah. Oh, cool.
yeah,
And the one thing that I've been thinking about since this just keeps growing is we may just want to make this like flavored Raven 1, flavored Raven 2, because as you well know, as we do, there's a lot of stories and poems with Poe.
yes,
So this may not just be a one-off because we know we all love some food and they just
yes.
keep growing.
That is very
I know.
true.
My only regret is that I'm not in Tennessee with you guys because I would love to be like Jeff and be like a taste tester.
Yes.
Exactly. Hey, it works for me too. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Jeannie, didn't we had the whole gang over for was it the burgers in the Rue Morgue soup? Was
I
it
think that was the one, yes. And
yeah,
also the lettuce wraps. Wasn't there a
the
lettuce wraps
purloined
one?
lettuce
Yeah,
wraps?
the
Yes.
purloined lettuce wraps.
Oh
Yes, we
dear,
did
that
that one
yeah.
too.
Yes.
Yes, we have a lot of cool family game nights and food nights, so we can
Yes.
test out
Yes.
the
Oh,
on a lot of people. So
Good
yeah,
how fun.
opinions. Yes.
so yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we have a lot of stuff coming down the pike, and Carmen, along with her recent publication of the Rose Bush, she's got plans coming in for the next in the series, the Asphodels, and also you can catch her at the Happily Ever After. I remembered
Yes.
Happily Ever After Festival in Sevierville on September the 5th through the 7th,
Mm-hmm.
and especially at the Poe Fest. International Poe Fest is October 3rd through the 5th.
I
It's the first weekend of October.
Yeah, the first weekend
is
of October.
let me look real quick because I've got the my calendar right here. It is yes, it'll officially like start it'll be the 4th and the 5th. That's the Saturday and Sunday, but there will be, I think, some Friday night event.
Yeah, they do something on
The
Friday.
third.
I didn't get to do it last year, but hopefully this year.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
you yeah, because it was very
The
cool.
movie night. And
Hmm.
hopefully, Jeannie,
Yes.
I hope that you can make it this year for sure.
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
said, fingers crossed
Yeah.
if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, like my mama used to say. So you never know.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
But
yes,
yeah,
because one of the things that I told my husband is I am going to have to drive because of taking books. Can't take those.
hmm
I mean,
Too
I could take them
heavy.
on the plane, but that would cost a fortune. So
yeah, you'd have to have another seat just as dedicated to the books.
yes.
They'd have to pay their own luggage fee. Uh, so, but yeah, so just looking out for all that. Check out on Amazon. As you know, you can find us on our social media, either under 6 Degrees of Poe,
Hmm.
under the Quotable Raven, all the cool stuff.
Yes, and
And
Holly Knightley.
yes, Holly Knightley. Check out her new stuff. It's also published on Amazon.
Hmm.
What's the name of the newest one, Holly? I can't remember right off the top.
Uh,
I can see the picture, but I can't remember the name.
yeah, the one that just came out where it was Houses Have Secrets, and
There
yeah,
you
that was
go.
my recent, my mystery, my haunted house mystery. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. That
see.
was. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like so scattered, but yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
houses have secrets, don't they
yeah,
all? Don't they all? And
yeah. That's
me, like Carmen mentioned earlier, my actual first publication in the realm, I've been fighting it for years, but our poems are going to be featured in the Ravens quote
Both press.
press.
Yes.
Yes, in
Cherish.
their book Cherish. And so check those out when they get released. And Carmen, thank you for joining us
Thank you.
in our Poe discussion.
It has
And
been
Holly, thank you
lovely.
for being the P3 to our co-hosting,
Yeah.
co-hosting. There we go.
Yeah.
well,
Po-hosting.
thanks for inviting me. This was so it was fun. I was nervous about being on the other end. So, but yeah, Well, because Carmen could just interview herself and we would all listen, right?
Like, hey,
That would be
we just
weird.
sit back.
And Jeannie, of course, you're like a pro. Like I said to you before the start, I was like, Jeannie, I'm just gonna, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We'll call me a poer.
yeah.
I'm a poer. I mean, I po, po flow. That's me. I got the po flow. Just saying.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Well, next
Thank
time,
you.
thank you. And then July's guest, we haven't locked down just yet.
Correct. Yes.
So we're not going to give away anything because,
Mhm.
things change. We never know.
Yes.
But check us out next month. Good Lord, Monday's after me. For our next Poe discussion, you can check us on Poe Unplugged. This month, we are reading, say it because I'm going to say it wrong, Carmen.
Oh, it's William Wilson.
Exactly. I always
Oh,
want to say Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, that
So,
she does.
I do. I think of the
I do
president
say,
before.
yeah, I do say that once in a while, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, yeah. But yeah, I feel you, Jeannie. You're not alone. I do that on occasion.
Yeah, William Wilson. William Wilson.
William
Okay.
Wilson.
Yeah,
Yes.
on Poe Unplugged. And then this
That's
month's
June
review
24th.
morgue is the
Phantom of the
Rue Morgue.
Morgue.
Yep.
Oh, I've
Mm-hmm.
never
Yep.
heard of that
So
one. That should be good.
it's the 1951 or
Something.
52, I
Something
think.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a one I haven't seen yet. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
me neither. I'm excited about that one.
Yeah. So all you out there, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Holly. We look forward to future Poe hosting with us. We can check that out down the line. And so Carmen will check out on Amazon The Rose Bush and look forward to the next in the Gothic Garden series. And
Yes.
on that note, we are
Are.
Poe